stuck in a life that seems out of your control, stuck in a job that you don't really like, you're not sure what you can do about it. I used to have a job for a while in the corporate world and I got out of it. So what did I do that maybe you can do? And why am I wearing this green visor hat today? What is the significance of this green visored hat? Welcome to Goose Pond Hideout with Rob. So hey, yep, that's me. I'm Rob. And why am I wearing this green visor hat today instead of my floppy straw hat? I'll tell you in a second. It's significant. All right. So maybe you have a job that you hate, a job you don't like. You know, you feel like your life's out of control, that you just somehow got like sucked into what you're doing and you're just going through the motions. And, you know, the thing is that most of us, we end up in a position in life based upon the life that essentially that we're born into. You know, even here in the United States is, you know, whatever our grandparents did and our parents did. You know, that's kind of what we did. Go to school, get a job, get a house, get, you know, all the things, the trappings of the normal life. We just sort of all fall into that. And there's a good chance that that isn't what you want to be doing in your life. So what can you do to get out of that situation? So the thing is, I grew up in a small family business, and my grandfather, and that's why I'm wearing this green hat, my grandfather was born in the early 1900s, 1905, somewhere around then, and he grew up on a farm in Wisconsin. So everybody was farmers back then. Everybody was essentially self-employed, if you will. And he was too young for World War I and then too old for World War II. And at some point in his life, he decided that, you know, the farming thing wasn't for him. And back then, now you've got to think back to, Bonnie's taken off after something. You've got to think back at that time in the world, what things were like. And my grandfather stopped school at 8th grade. That's what the boys did back then. You went to school to 8th grade and then you went out and worked on the farm. So he had an 8th grade education. And at some point in his life, he moved down to the suburbs of Chicago and he got a job in a furniture factory. And again, you know, that was the time when the transition from everybody being self-sufficient, independent, living on the farm type to that industrial revolution, if you will, when people moved into more urban areas and started working at factories. And he also started his own business. And it was, you know, working outdoors with plants and mowing lawns and you know, a farming kind of related job in the suburbs of the Chicago area. So that's what I grew up in. My father passed away when I was just about 4 or 5 years old. And so my grandma and grandpa kind of became, you know, they were like second parents for me because my mom had to work and at a job. so they, you know, grew up at the business. And so, I mean, I was, if you will, self-employed. Yeah, it was my grandfather's business, but I mean, I like to feel like I was pretty much working for myself. I certainly wasn't under the same kind of stresses that my classmates were under, working at grocery stores or fast food joints and things like that. That was, you know, I was doing my own thing. And then, you know, to be blunt about it, I was smart, I'm intelligent, and I decided I kind of wanted to take the easy way in life, so I went on to school and went to college and that. I graduated high school at 17 and went off to college, and that's right when, for me, talking to my grandfather with World War I and II, is the Vietnam War ended about 6 months before I turned 18. So that wasn't an issue for me, thankfully. I didn't have to, make that kind of a decision or deal with that. So, I went off to college and got my college degree. And then I did get a corporate job after I got out of college. And that lasted about 2 years or so, 2.5 years maybe. And I'm like, this isn't for me. So I left that corporate job and went back to school for more education because it was easy. And then I've worked for myself my entire life since, my 20s. I've been self-employed, doing my own thing. So that's the reality that I grew up in, was being your own boss and having your own business, and that viewpoint of earning money on your own as opposed to having a 9-to-5 job. So that brings us to, how can you change your reality? If you're a person that has grown up where everybody in your family, when you get out of school, whatever that means, high school, college, grad school, whatever, is, trade school, that's a great option today. I would highly recommend doing the trade school thing, community college. And you just do that, or how can you get your brain to think about how that you can go off on your own? It just sounds so unbelievable, so foreign, so I can't do that kind of thing. Oops, I got so excited sharing information with you, I forgot to tell you why I'm wearing this green visor hat. My grandpa always wore a green visor hat when he was outside working in his property and his business. So I wear this and makes me think that I'm close to my grandpa. Ooh, my green visor hat. Think about what abilities you have, what skills you have. What are the kinds of things, that you can do? Like, for example, I just thought of this, I hadn't planned to say it, but my grandfather moved down to the Chicago area and got a job in a furniture factory, but his skill set was obviously farming. So he started his own business working outdoors with plants and that type of thing. And grew that business, and then left the furniture business to be a full-time self-employed person with his own business. So think about your skill set. What kinds of things are you good at? What kinds of things do you like to do? What kinds of things might people pay you money to do for them, sort of a thing? And play along with that, with the skill set thing and your knowledge and what you can possibly do that you enjoy doing, that you would get out of that stress of having a normal world job. So what that kind of means is, what can you become an expert at? And be careful how you interpret the word expert, but what can you just be good at? Because think about Stephen King with writing books, or what the Harry Potter thing, J.K. Rowling's, an athlete, Caitlin Clark there with basketball. And I don't mean, when I say be an expert and what are you good at, what can you do, I'm using them as examples because they're names that pop into my head. But there's lots of people that do the same things that aren't that known. And that can be you. What can you be a so-called expert at that you enjoy doing? I have the things that I do. And like, for example, when I was going, after I quit my job, left my job and went back to school, I wrote code. I worked as a programmer as an independent contractor, self-employed for other companies for their, I had medical knowledge, and computer knowledge, and the reports that they would send to the FDA, the clinical trials, you know, when they come out with a new drug and they got to test it on people and make use human guinea pigs, and they record everything. And you know, that's the kind of stuff that I did, you know, while I was in school. And then when I got out of school, I, you know, just did my own thing. But that's the thing is, you know, what can you do? What can you be an expert at? Where can you grow so that you can change your life and be the kind of person that you really want to be? And, you know, I'm a burn the bridges kind of guy. Ray Bradbury quote that's one of my favorites is, you know, jump off the cliff and build your wings on the way down. And that certainly isn't everybody's cup of tea. You know, you can't just pack up the car and drive halfway across the country and say, I'm starting a new life. That's me. You know, we moved onto the sailboat. We left the sailboat. We moved here on the homestead. I'm a burn the bridges, you know, plan A and no plan B, if, you know, just you're committed to doing it. But if that's not the way, you know, you are, which most people aren't in this world, is break down the big, you know, you're here, you want to be there, and that seems like too big of a leap off the cliff, is, you know, break it down into smaller steps. Take just little, well, what can I do to get to here? What can I do to get to here? And you know, do smaller steps. And then that way, by doing, you know, you can get from point A, because think of, you know, what you're doing now, and look back at your life, look over your shoulder, and look back, you know, 5 years ago or whatever, and what you were doing then, and how far you've come. And, you know, so that you don't just get stuck in that hamster wheel of getting up and going to work and coming home and paying the bills, because you get consumed by that. And then when you think of how you can, you know, change your life, you're like, well, I'm stuck here, and that's do the little steps, and you can get where that you want to go. Sounds like a plan, I hope. Freedom!